I don't know, the 70s as old.
Uh,
So, can you quote the Rubaiyat? Sorry, did I?
uh, yeah, I can. Do you really want that?
I'm streaming now. Wait.
Well, a loaf of bread, a jug of wine, and thou. Right? Do you remember that? Um,
Hello, everybody. This
here.
is open mic. Actually, this is open mic, but it's also Garth's quoting hour. Welcome.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Garth. No, no. Since Shyla is not here yet, what
Uh,
is your favorite book, Garth, and why? And have you lost
well,
friends over it?
yeah, it often changes, but sometimes I'm dealing, you meet people that are just not quite right in the head, and and
Are you talking
and
about us?
no. But I always notice, that when I have to deal with someone who's kind of uh, cracked or whatever like that, that I always think of Moby Dick,
Hmm.
where uh, uh, Starbuck is in the hold with Captain Ahab, and he says to be enraged with a brute beast that acted out of blind instinct
Hmm.
seems blasphemous. And Ahab gets up and he's like, "Don't speak to me of blasphemy, man. I'd strike the sun if it insulted me." And he says a lot of other stuff. But then he stops and he goes, "Listen, I'm going to explain things to you." He goes, "All visible objects, man, are but as pasteboard masks. Some inscrutable yet reasoning thing puts forward the molding of their features. The white whale tasks me. He heaps me, yet he is but a mask. 'Tis the thing behind the mask I chiefly hate, the malignant thing that has frightened and tormented man since time began.
You don't. You.
The thing that mauls and mutilates, not killing a man outright, but letting him live on with half a heart and half a lung." And I always go, right when you get to that part, I'm like, "It's the squooey wabbit."
You read this. Are you? Have you? Is this memorized?
Yeah, I memorized that.
Amazing, amazing.
But that's abridged. He actually goes into it a
Uh,
lot more in depth. I abridged. I cut off the stuff about that he talks about. If I was going to punch out the sun, I would do it.
Garth,
But
Garth, hold on. I need to put Shyla in charge, and this guy is trying to shoot us because we're quoting too much literature. Don't shoot me, or I'll be reading from Infinite Jest, and you only get this warning once, my friend.
Insiders here.
Oh
Your
no, now
Bible
he's
must have
dancing with a
respect.
gun.
Your Bible must have respect.
Oh, we have a lot of respect,
No
man.
disrespect. No disrespect.
No, no, we're
No
not
disrespect.
No
He's
disrespect,
saying no
dude.
disrespect.
Oh yeah, yeah. No
You do not speak about Muhammad here.
What?
Do not speak about Muhammad here.
I'm not speaking about Muhammad. We were speaking about other religions, and we said that it usually ends badly when the prophet, because I sometimes compare myself to like a prophet of sorts. Is that
There is
offensive?
only one prophet. There is only one prophet.
Yeah, me
okay,
or who?
this
That's
guy,
you, Muhammad.
I'm going to mute this guy because he's saying stuff that's actually not accurate.
That is not accurate. That is absolutely not accurate. Um, but I will.
And I think
But
we don't.
welcome, Kovacs. Welcome,
We,
Kovacs. Welcome,
we
Scorpion.
welcome you and stuff, but we don't like racism or hatred against any
Yes, do not be
people in
racist.
Sansar,
Yes,
especially
do
against
not be
Muslims.
racist.
Please,
Okay.
please,
Okay,
please do not
okay.
be racist.
Can I say something? Because first of all, this is my place, and Shyla is the host here. And if anybody is offending Shyla as the host of this show because it's open mic, then I will mute because this is my party in my house, and I invited Shyla to host this party. And welcome, Shyla. Take it away. What
Yeah,
is
thank you.
today's topic?
So today's topic is fantasy, but the thing is, and I want to welcome, here's Pepsi Dodge,
Pepsidopoulos?
Pepsidogi.
Oh,
That's a cool name.
am I allowed to come in?
Yes,
Yeah, come on
absolutely.
in.
This
We're
is
having open mic.
This is open mic. These mics are open. Shyla is hosting open mic where everybody talks around the mic
Everybody talks around the mic. Sometimes the
you
host does
too.
not show up for the show because the events teleport takes her to an instance of its own.
Oh,
So
crapper.
she just sits by herself and thinks nobody loves her, and then she realizes, no, they've all got to be there. They'd have said something.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna get
So,
some coffee. I'll be right
what's
back.
what's the
all
open
right,
mic
get
about?
some
What do
coffee.
we?
So
what do we discuss?
fantasy, fantasy, gargoyles, dragons, elves, all these kinds of things can be, or
Magic.
maybe like I have a magic. Yeah, magic is good, and then we have fantasies about things we'd like to do in life. I have a fantasy about swimming with dolphins. I probably won't be able to do that, but it's still like on my bucket
Do
list.
the
I
dolphins
think.
mean anything?
Do the dolphins mean anything?
Are they like significant to like something in your life?
I think so. Yeah, I think I find dolphins like elephants. Dolphins and elephants are my favorite animals, and I think I find them highly emotionally intelligent.
Okay.
And
Let-
that's what's attractive. But who'd like to talk about fantasy? Drax, you go ahead. What
Right.
did you
And
want to
Shyla,
say?
I just want to lay the ground rules. This is open mic. Everybody's welcome. If you don't feel comfortable using your voice, then you can type in text, and then we'll read it. And we do this every Tuesday at 9 o'clock Pacific time. And like Shyla said, Shyla is hosting it. I'm just facilitating it because this is my basement. I have to pay rent and all that. Um, I sometimes fantasize that there is no such thing as rent, but it's Shyla's
That's
show.
a great fantasy, too.
I'd love that fantasy, man.
But so if you can't make rent, you can live here in my basement. You're welcome anytime, or you can go up to the village. But yeah, so
Well,
fantasy. Yeah,
except
go ahead.
here in Sansar, you get a free experience, right? That's awesome.
Yeah, but you don't want to be alone sitting around in your experience. You want to sit with me.
No, you want to build something that's fantasy.
So I hope about today that Garth has a story that involves peeing somehow. We're not fetishists or anything, but we had
But last week we had a lot of that, so it's carryover.
well, yeah,
Oh,
we had one time we had like a theme was like childhood trauma or something, and
yeah.
and Garth had the funniest
But
story.
I know they're funny stories, but I just don't want to end up being typecast as the
No, we
As the
don't want to
pea guy.
typecast you.
The
We'd
pea kid.
rather you be typecast as the Red Bull.
okay, yeah.
Red Bull. So, yeah, does
Oh,
anyone,
I
and
get
fantasy
it.
can also be Disney.
His costumes are Red Bull, like the energy drink.
Yes,
Yeah. But
10 points.
At the beginning there's a mythology about the behemoth at the beginning of the world, this great beast that was created.
Ah, I
There's an
can't
ancient
find-
painting that looks like this cow that is the behemoth. The behemoth.
The behemoth.
Behemoth.
You're throwing all your books on the floor.
I'm looking for a specific book for my story. Here it is. Okay. Here's my. Shall I start, Shala? You're the boss. You tell me, or you want to start with the poem?
Anyone can start. So if you're up for starting, Dragster, that's fine.
Tossing those books.
All right.
Amazing.
So here is my story. And some of you may have heard it, but I'll elaborate a little bit, and I hope I make it funny. Now, in front of me, I'm holding this, and we're also streaming this, by the way, on Periscope and Twitch and
Yeah, I'm
YouTube.
streaming too, so we're double streaming.
So every parent is concerned about the kids reading, especially nowadays. I mean, I'm in my 40s, so I've been around the block a few times, and it was not that big of a deal, I guess, when I grew up. But I come from a literary snob family. My mother was a teacher, and my father is an engineer, but he did read literary fiction. And when I loved reading up to this day, I read like a crazy person. But when I was 12 or so, I got into sci-fi. When I outgrew picture books and you know what passed as a young adult novel back in the 70s, which were fairly lame, and the stuff you read in school, which was always social issues. Of course, there's some great books, by the way, that deal with social issues by German writers. The Cloud is a story, a book that you read in eighth grade, which is about nuclear war, that kind of stuff from the 70s. I discovered Conan, all right? Not Conan O'Brien, but Conan the
Conan the
Excuse
Barbarian.
me, this man throwing your books all over the floor.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking. We're here at open mic. There's one rule in open mic, which is that the person who is at the open mic and speaking, he must only be interrupted if it's on point. But actually, we would like to give people the floor at the open mic. But I'll give
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry.
No worries. You were talking about books on the
Yeah,
floor. Yeah, I'm aware of that.
And it's
Yeah, look,
okay. He
this
can throw them all on the floor.
Yeah,
It's
let
okay.
let him.
pick them
they
up,
will be
mate.
banned.
Can you pick them up and put them back?
Nah.
No, these books will be burned.
Don't even.
Can you just put the books back, please?
I will burn these books.
No, can you
No,
put
books.
them back?
That. Oh
We
my
don't-
God.
We don't burn books.
No, we
here.
don't burn
These
books.
books are heretical.
Oh my
They're
God.
heretical.
Jerky
Okay,
boys.
now I'm gonna mute him because that's ridiculous.
Okay.
Sorry, but normally I would engage the troll because I do find it interesting, and I find it interesting for people to watch what a waste of time it is to be sort of a troll. And I might be of the misguided belief, as a prophet in training, that I could convert the troll to a good human being and use his energy for good. But maybe I'm totally naive. Who knows? Anyways, so I discovered
He's
Conan.
Conan the Barbarian.
Before you get started,
Okay, yeah.
what I love is he's now been muted by several people, but he is still continuing the conversation.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's
So,
please
I-
do talk
you
to
know,
talk
you're
to.
engaging. But Conan, tell us about Conan
Oh,
the
God.
Barbarian, because I know he's your favorite.
I mean,
right?
this was a formative thing, because when you start reading for fun, when you discover something, right, that you're kind of obsessed with at that age, if it's music or whatever it is, the age like 12, 13, this will stay with you for the rest of your life. And in terms of reading, and today's theme is fantasy, when I discovered fantasy. And again, my mother was literature. My dad was sort of an engineer, was all like sort of the real world. Um, and my mother was literary fiction, things that deal with real issues and are about prose. And then in school, it was about social issues. And then I discovered fantasy, and I discovered, whoa, there is such a thing. I can read this stuff, and it has nothing. It's not pretentious. It's just a badass dude, right? Who looks like Arnold for some reason, and he inhabits his own world. And there's a map. This was the coolest about these Conan books. And again, if people don't know, Conan was written by Robert E. Howard, who lived a short life. He committed suicide in the late 1930s, I believe, and he wrote
A
tons.
tragic story.
It's a very tragic story, and it's similar to H.P. Lovecraft, actually, which I didn't know. I heard a podcast. They had both severe issues with their mothers, interestingly enough.
You watched the movie before with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, I'll get to that. You're very impatient, but I appreciate it, and I also understand why you're impatient because I can drone on. But it's my mic right now. I'll keep it tight.
All right, mate. I'm sorry.
No worries. You're next. You're next with the story. So Conan. So what I want to talk about is the impact that Conan had was huge, because I found it so cool that these books were just about adventure, and it was about a world that was concocted. And Robert E. Howard wrote tons of books. He wrote like Western. He wrote every genre. He just basically threw spaghetti at the wall, trying to find out what sells. And Conan, I believe, was the one that sold. And of course, in 1982, Arnold played Conan, and he said in an interview, "I did not play Conan, I am Conan." And when I went to the local bookstore in my Munich suburb where I grew up, that was a good impression, right, Garth?
Yeah.
So, and by the way, Arnold has been floating the rumor that he will do a Conan sequel. Arnold is 72
should.
years old, and he totally should. He's in
He
better
should
shape.
be the father.
Ah, dude, he's in better shape than all of us combined. He could play. They don't need
Like
makeup on
the
Arnold.
Lord Conan.
Yes, I
Lord
did
Conan.
not
I
play
mean,
Conan.
he's the only one I know who.
I am
could
Conan
believably
the
be Conan.
Barbarian.
That's a good.
That was good.
That was
That was
good.
good.
Okay, so
Welcome, Aaron Boss.
let me get to the to the semi punchline here. Actually, I have to turn down my volume here on my mixer here. I'm sorry. I'm feeding back. Um, so Conan, I went to the local bookstore. This is how I discovered Conan because of the cover. I went to my local bookstore in my little suburb, and this book that I have scanned in here, this is from a German publisher, and I have 25 of these books in my bookshelf, and they're in pristine condition. I read them all. I read them all, but they're still in pristine condition. Why? Because because I basically read them with like a with 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 absolute care, and they all have Conan on the cover. And then my mother discovered that I was reading Conan. Now, what do you think she said? She said, "This is garbage. This is demeaning towards women. It's very one-dimensional." Yeah, but mom, there's a world, there's a map in there, and he's strong. Nine, said my mother, and my Conan books. I woke up in the morning in my Conan, and this dude is stepping on my Conan books, dude. Um, I was just saying, this is pristine condition. Anyways, and the next morning, my Conan books were gone. And my mom said I threw them in the trash because it's trash and that's where they belong.
Banned them like this guy over here. Oh, he's gone.
And she actually lied about it. I threw such a hissy fit that she said, "Okay, I'll give them back to you." And my mom passed away a long time ago. I sometimes wish, and I imagine her looking down from the heavens and going like, "Yeah, he read 25 Conan books, but he's also reading David Foster Wallace now, so I did good."
You did good, Mom.
Yeah.
I
So
agree. You did good.
Yeah.
I gotta say something about your story. Can I say something?
yeah, please, please. I actually wanted to say
I
one
used
sentence. I
to-
say, kids or parents, fantasy is just fine. Whatever you read, fantasy can be awesome. And yes, just if you have kids or whatever, or if you feel like, hey, this stuff is pulp or whatever, don't. It's great. I mean, I turned into a snob, but
I used
whatever.
to make fantasy maps.
Oh,
That's one of the things I used to do as a kid. I would create
me
maps.
as well.
I'd put mountains
Yeah,
on
loads,
them and
yeah.
rivers and and these were real places to me.
Oh,
That's
did it take a lot of
awesome.
time?
Oh yeah, they took lots
Yeah.
of time. They were maps.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Like, do you still have any?
I don't know that I do still have any. Do you, Daisy?
I'm not sure. Possibly I do, actually.
That's
a lot of money.
awesome. That is awesome. See, and this is what this engages this map. It's awesome that you mentioned that because like I said, I think the thing that attracted me to these Conan books, yeah, sure, the cover and Arnold was on the cover and then these gargoyles, but then you open it and there is a map. And the map is the thing. I mean, it's not a surprise. Lord of the Rings, the fold out maps or any successful book has a map in it, and so did you guys draw maps of your own worlds that were in your head?
Yes. Yeah, it was just my own world
Yeah.
in my head.
Yeah.
That
Oh, that's
Who
awesome.
lived in the world? Like, who was the inhabitants of the world?
Yeah, there were inhabitants of the world. There were
Geckos
cities and towns.
and alligators. That's what.
Who were the
Mine were just maps. They didn't really have much beyond the map. It was all
Do you
about
have,
the
like-
map.
Did you have like motorways on them and stuff?
No,
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
think
have motorways on mine. Did you,
Well,
Daisy?
roads. I think I probably had roads, and certainly forests, and mountains, and rivers, and lots of towns. I used to like naming all
Wow.
the towns.
Yeah,
Oh, you
yeah.
named the towns.
Yeah,
Oh
see, I
yeah,
had
oh yeah,
towns.
oh yeah.
So there were inherently inhabitants, and I would write stories in my head. Now this is going to sound like I was a very offbeat child, and I grew up in a kind of harsh reality, and so I would sit in my closet with my maps and tell stories about what was happening
Wow,
to
that's awesome.
entertain myself. Because as you know, Drax, I had a difficulty reading.
Hold on,
Oh, wait a minute, I gotta mute him. Hold on.
Okay. Oh, muted.
hold on. The cow did something. So you
Well, the cow
you were
isn't
sitting-
always neat.
so you were sitting in the closet making up your own stories.
Yeah, I would sit in the closet and make up my own stories with my maps. So that, I did have people in my maps, and they would travel around the maps, and There would be.
I'll just leave the game. I don't want to.
Hold on,
Rooms in
hold
the
on,
river.
hold on, Shyla. Now that we got the growing pains.
Okay, there you
Jesus
go.
Christ.
You got him.
He muted himself. He muted himself. The boss, Aaron, the boss, muted himself. So you were sitting in the closet. You were making up stories from the maps.
Yeah.
Wow.
And because I couldn't, because it was difficult to read.
Right.
And so I think that was my way of creating some of the fantasy that reading offers. Hey, Silver Eagle, good to see you. I think that's why I did it, because I had a hard time reading, and so I could create my own books.
That is fantastic. And then you created, like you were asking already, you created people and kind of different inhabitants of the worlds.
Yeah, and I don't remember any of the stories I told myself, but
Yeah, but how did you read your own books? If you
I
can't
read
read
from
very
the
well?
map. I read from the map, so I would take them on a journey through the map I had created.
Yeah, like, go over here, walk over here, and then here's a bit battle.
I think in my life I only created maybe 3 of these maps, because they took a long time to put all the mountains in. And I remember when I started making them was after class in school on maps and topography, and you get your first lesson on maps at a fairly young age, and I thought I could make a map that shows mountains and rivers and valleys. And
Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
I was just gonna
Yes,
say,
of
yeah.
course, of
Yeah,
course.
I say you should be a dungeon master by the sound of it. Yeah.
Daisy,
Yeah.
what about your maps? Did you also sit in a closet? Well, we know that you did sit in a
No,
closet.
well, no,
You
but
revealed
I
last time.
They put you.
That's
They put
right,
you
but
in
that-
the
yeah.
custodial room, right? Is that
That
where you
was
made them?
That was in school.
to learn my typing skills. Yeah, yeah. That wasn't to invent
That's an
stories.
inside joke for people who weren't here. They don't know what we're talking about. I mean, it's not a
Yeah,
joke.
no,
It's actually real.
Yeah, no, I didn't really invent stories. I just read them. Yeah.
Yeah, but your
I used to
maps, did they lead to stories? I mean,
No, not really. No, I'm not. I'm not sure I'm exactly a natural storyteller. The storytelling is always is probably I have to work at that. Let's say. Yeah.
but what were the
Do
purpose
you ever
of
have,
your?
like-
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, did you ever read pop-up books? They sound a bit more of the level of, if you can't read very well, you could always just read a pop-up book. Pictures come out, bit of pop and action.
I like those.
I
I had
pop-up books. I
pop-up
don't
books,
think
yeah.
that's the solution to someone who has
They always
difficulty
get torn
reading.
up.
No.
I got a solution. I got some help.
Yeah, but it's a possible solution. You could have, tried pop-up books, have you?
I don't think as an adult that's an effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
solution.
if it works for children, it could work for adults as well.
Actually, that's not a bad point. I think actually when you're learning a language, I think that's great. And I
use children books in learning Chinese. Yeah,
there you
exactly
go.
that way.
That
And-
I can understand.
Yeah. But also, but no, this is not a bad point at all. Since we're on that subject, I recently bought a bunch of books about history, some broad topics, and some more narrow ones for students and for children. I just wanted to kind of find out how these books are being presented and how they deal with the subject matter. But I learned a lot from that stuff. I mean, it's broad and it's a little bit black and white, and it gives you an overview, but there's some real value in this, and it, it, yeah. But we're supposed to talk about fantasy. So isn't
Scorpion's here. He's kind of quiet, but I'm going to ask. Do
Scorpion?
you
Yeah.
have a story about fantasy that you like? That's an awesome avatar, by the way.
Thank you. I've been trying to dig deep into the mind and add to the conversation, but
Well,
I
this
don't
is
really
open
have,
mic.
Are you
Anything
a
goes.
documentary kind of guy?
I don't have anything at the particular moment in my head. I promise I'll
Okay.
add it if it pops up though.
awesome.
Like a pop-up
But
book.
I like Conan. I definitely, I mean, I grew up with the movie and stuff, and I didn't read the book, unfortunately. But
What does
no.
fantasy? Do? It has maps in it. But do you guys think like fantasy is like really bad? It's
Yeah,
escapism?
I reckon it's a bad form of escapism, to be honest.
Yeah. See, there you
Because
go. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
you're allowing people to escape into these realities that don't exist, that they get so involved in it that, eventually, like, they're going to get a bit depressed or a bit upset that they aren't actually a part of these realities. They've got to return back to the real life, which just isn't for them. And, it can lead to the sense of...
Bit like virtual worlds.
I have something to
One
add.
person at a time, Garth.
I have something to add, and that is in an authoritarian society, and I want to bring up Philip K. Dick in particular.
Woohoo.
We often don't realize, Philip K. Dick, we often don't realize that our society has a sort of a range of acceptable opinion. And authors like Philip K. Dick and Kurt Vonnegut write science fiction and fantasy. But what they're doing is they're using it to essentially get around the censorship. They're unfolding a narrative that wouldn't necessarily be accepted as a representation of contemporary society's problems. And this has been done in societies all down through the centuries. In fact, during the Mongol Empire, when the Mongolians controlled China, opera emerged as these fantasy plays of ancient history. And the whole purpose behind them was political discourse.
Mm-hmm.
If
So
anyone
that's the same
thought,
for Shakespeare, isn't it?
yes,
It's a very
true.
powerful.
So you have a very valid point. Sometimes, is it Pespadoj? Sometimes it becomes purely escapism, and it has no other message. But and it's sort of a waste of time. I would agree.
So I want to put it.
I disagree.
There's another part of
I want to
that.
add too, but I'll wait.
Go for it. Okay,
Okay,
that's
Scorpion,
mine.
you go
Scorpio,
next.
go ahead.
My 2
Scorpion.
cents.
Welcome, Al. Good to see you.
Those were 3
a
cents,
bit-
but they were good.
It's a little convoluted. I'm going to try and stay narrow on it because I have like 8 different paths I could take on the topic. But
Oh, that's better than my 15 on any given subject. Go ahead, sorry, Scorpio.
I think that exploring your mind is really important for growth and to discover new ways of approaching situations. And one of them, I think, is done through science fiction, and kind of like what Garth was saying about, I don't know if it's the same exact viewpoint, but I'm going to use some of what he was saying about writing about controversial topics in a science fiction platform. So it doesn't exactly pertain to any particular group of people that anybody could generally relate to. But the person that's reading it oftentimes will
I'll be right
find
back.
a correlation and try and, play out scenarios in their mind, how they might approach a situation or handle things. But ultimately, I think it comes down to, for me, is maybe a fringe science type of viewpoint about exploring your mind, and
Right.
your thoughts can control your outcome in life. And I mean, this has been pushed for the past 10 years that, what you think is what you become, and how your environment unfolds and wraps around you, and it goes on and on and on. So I think that it's, unfortunately, will, maybe 30% of its user base will get lost in La La Land and become a useless member of society, wrapped in the science fiction world of fantasy. But at the same time, I mean, they have the right and the privilege to do that. Fortunately, there's places where doing something like that would probably not be a good idea. But I think exploring those worlds is a good idea. I mean, a lot of our science that we have today comes from fantasy because we explored these ideas.
That's another good point, yeah.
No one ever even thought of. I mean, everyone's always like, "Oh, calling Dick Tracy." We got our watches now. Friggin' the iPhone, or the Apple Watch 4 can detect atrial fibrillation. I mean, come on, like,
I think I'm going to agree with you, Scorpion, and I think from a fantasy perspective, I do think more of fairies and woodlands and islands of their own, caves and mystical kind of stuff, and I really think what that offers us maybe not so much more the science side of it, but the other side of it, the getting back in touch with nature. Taking time
and
out.
societies too, the relationship
Yeah,
between
I
people.
think there's
but
quite different arguments between fantasy and science fiction.
Daisy, I'll let you
make...
I'll let you elaborate, Daisy. I want to quickly say it's unfortunate that and I forgot his name because he's new, that he left, because he did bring up a very good point, and Scorpio was great, and Garth, your 2 cents. The way I see it, I think it can really go both ways, and I think the danger of getting sucked into anything and disengaging from the world is a danger. But I think to merely blame or say the issue is that people read too much fantasy novels or whatever, that's as misguided as saying virtual worlds, and Daisy was going there. Virtual worlds are the sole reason why people disengage from reality. I have this argument with people all the time because of my involvement with Second Life, and I usually say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to deny the peril, but I got to tell you, when we talk about addiction and stuff, let's talk about. It starts with a crate of beer, or with bad television, or that's the
I
outlet.
don't.
I'm just responding to he's coming back. What he was saying, because I would not dismiss the danger that of 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 people getting sucked into anything. That's what I guess all I wanted to say.
But it's particularly with science fiction. It's a very powerful. A lot of science fiction, particularly in some fantasy, can be a very powerful metaphor. If you look at,
that's why William Shatner told them all to get a life, right, Daisy?
If you look at all the dystopia, I mean, where would we be without 1984?
Yeah, but nobody is denying
the Handmaid's Tale or anything like that.
Actually, Brave New World is important too.
Yeah. Brave New World, because I mean, you can't. Yeah, we do. I mean, you can't really imagine.
The Handmaid's Tale, though, is more like. It just feels like a puppet isn't needed.
Wait. One at a time, people.
Wait, hold on. One at a time. Let Daisy go.
No.
Let Daisy make her point, and then we'll come back.
But let's make these points. Yeah. That's good. This is good.
Thank you, Shyla.
Well, I was just saying that I think that, the 1984 or Handmaid's Tale, I mean, they're probably the most famous sort of books of their kind, in a sort of powerful.
Want to know how I got these scars?
Little bit less.
It's not your turn at the mic, but I'll tell you, I do want
Wait to derail the conversation.
Just wait till it's your turn. Daisy.
Misdirection.
How are you doing on your point?
My father
I
was a drinker.
Yeah, I
and
got
a fiend.
Another one I have to make.
And one night,
did he read fantasy books?
Than you.
There he goes.
It's from the movies, just playing.
I muted him as well now. I've muted a few people today.
Yeah, you got to come up with more. You got to come up with more imaginative stuff than just quoting movies.
Is relevant.
Well, or make it kind of related to the subject. Yeah. Make it kind of related, and we'll let you talk.
But Pepsi Dogi, go ahead. What would you respond? Because your point was like people get sucked into fantasy worlds and then they just forget about the real world. Is that kind of what you were saying?
No, my more point is that I feel like escapism isn't the right thing. I feel like people who get too convoluted in like these worlds and these books and games and all stuff like that, I feel like it's the wrong way to go, because it makes them forget the harsh reality, and then they're thinking about how happy they are now that they've got this world where they don't feel judged and like stuff like that. But I feel like.
Wait.
Sorry, what's this?
No. Go ahead. I mean,
I don't mean to laugh, Pepsi Dogi, but I live a life where I'm basically. Don't worry, I don't forget the harsh reality. of the weird of
Can
the
you
real
elaborate?
world.
Like, what's your reality?
Well, first of all, Pepsi Dogi, I also don't want to make fun of your argument, but it's very funny when you talk about the harsh realities and you wearing a Torley shirt and you have two hand puppets and we're
Yeah,
standing in a
exactly.
freaking virtual world around a non-existing table with a dude who
All
has.
right, mate. You know what? If no one wants to hear my point, I won't say it.
No,
I'll just
no,
leave.
no.
You know what? I'm sorry.
No, this is no
it's
offense.
okay. Someone else
No.
speak. Someone else speak.
No, no, no. Your
Yeah,
point
I'm
is
just
really.
making fun. I'm sorry.
No, we're not making fun at all.
just-
Please stick
Oh,
We're not
around.
making
Poor
fun.
guy.
Wait.
Poor guy.
All
Wait.
right.
Hey,
He's gonna
Go
bring
get
it
him,
back.
Drax.
He's gonna bring it back.
Drax will bring it
listen,
back.
I really didn't mean to offend you. You made a really good point, and I actually agree with you to a large extent, and that's what I wanted to discuss because I do feel there is a danger of people getting sucked into worlds and forgetting that we need to fix and heal the real world, the physical world. So please, I
I
didn't.
know. It's just I feel like I'm being laughed at and judged. Like I
No,
want to
not
have
at
my
all.
point across.
Oh, not at all. This is
Not
always
at all.
the no. Seriously, I trust me. Shyla is fantastic. She didn't mean no offense. Nobody's laughing at you. Sometimes when we get together like this, it gets a little rowdy and we poke a little bit fun, but it's all in good jest. Seriously, we very much appreciate that you're
All right,
here.
all right.
Seriously,
All right.
come back.
I understand.
Come back.
All right. All right.
I know it comes across that way.
It's history type of thing.
Pepsi is
Yeah,
back.
Pepsi
Pepsi's
Dogi,
back.
that's
Thank
good.
you. Pepsi is new
But
and he
Pepsi
just
had asked me
yeah.
a question.
No, go ahead,
He
Shyla. I'll
asked me
shut
a
up here.
question, which what my life was like. So I'm disabled, and most of the time I'm in a chair. But what comes at me all the time, that makes me know reality. Thank you, Wild and Free. That makes me know reality is that the laws, the services which I do not qualify for, how absolutely poor you must become in the country in which I live in order to really receive benefits which are still overstretched and inadequate.
Yeah.
And so to me, when you said, that's what made me giggle, when you said the harsh reality, I'm in the harsh reality all the time. And I personally don't see a problem with escaping that once in a while.
Yeah. And
I think I agree with you if you get sucked in and you don't pay your bills and you don't, cover the mortgage and stuff because you're too into the game. I totally agree with you.
yeah. And Pepsi, I just also
Essentially,
want to
business
say
before pleasure.
let me say for the record, for all of us, Pepsi, we very much appreciate your contribution to this discussion. And the
Most
forum,
Yeah.
here is really an open forum where we,
Thank you, guys.
sometimes we talk over
It's
each
a
other,
valid
sometimes
point.
we poke
Absolutely.
fun. So absolutely
Yeah, sometimes I make jokes, but I never mean it, personally.
Well, she's an
Yeah, I know,
alligator. She
I-
might
it's-
mean it. You never
I'm
know.
not-
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm an alligator.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
ignore
I'm
me.
I'm just not used to these type of. I'm not used to speaking to more than two people at once. So I just got a bit
Yeah.
overloaded with emotion.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry
yeah.
about
Of
that.
course. No need to
it's all
apologize.
good, and I'm glad that you're back, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're back, and maybe
Yeah,
this
thank you.
weekend
Thank you.
you'll become part of the group.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want
all
to
become
see
a
you
good friend.
use those puppets eventually, Pepsi Baby.
Oh
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
the
Is it
Joker.
Pepsi
This
Dogi?
I gotta
I
mute
really,
the Joker. Jeez.
Draxter used to do a routine with the puppets.
Oh
Hans
yeah,
and
that's
Franz.
right. Hans and Franz. I used to have two puppets, Pepsi, and then I was doing. They were two Germans. Their name was Hans and Franz.
This is Franz.
Hello, this is Hans and this is Franz. Did you play Conan? No, I'm just a hand puppet. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
you
pretty
used to
good.
do that. And welcome,
We are
Lacey.
here
Good to
bomb
see you.
you up.
Thanks.
but Pepsi, you I think your point was that it's concerning if people were to ignore
Yeah, like people have, No, I don't mean to. I hope that doesn't offend my girlfriend Shyla here, but there's people like she said, she has a disability, and I feel like it's wise that you should always remember that you've got these problems in life, so that you don't feel unhappy that once you're out of this fake reality, you're back into real reality, that you get upset that you've got these disabilities and stuff. You should always be proud of who you are, and personally, I think everyone in this room should be proud of the outstanding individual we all are to have a nice discussion, yet
Yeah,
understand that this is an
exactly.
online reality.
But look, see, this is the interesting thing, Pepsi, because I'm sure that every one of us has encountered people when you talk to them about Second Life or Sans or whatever virtual world, that they will say this is fake, this is not real. But we all know that this is not a fantasy, because
It's real people
we're
behind the
having
screens.
exactly, and so
Well,
that
and
Yes.
your emotions were very real,
exactly, yeah,
right? Our emotions in this world are actually very real.
yeah,
Yes.
You
my
know, so there is. I call when I'm not here in a virtual world. I call myself in the physical world
yeah, that's how we
because
should
I don't
name it.
really consider this much of a game.
Yeah.
You know, and I do agree with you. It's important to be proud of who I am. I think mostly what distresses me is how how we as a society work for the betterment of society.
And maybe we can work for the betterment of society like what we're doing just by connecting here in the virtual world where we have no idea about other people every anybody's life circumstances, and if we want to disclose that, then we can, but we don't have to. And in the physical realm, I learned this from Daisy in the movie, where Daisy said, I don't know if I left it in the movie, but you said, before the internet came along, you didn't have the luxury of non-disclosure. You always had to disclose your disability, and here we're not judged by who we are in the physical realm. It doesn't have to do with disabilities only, as can be with socioeconomic status, although I of course have to acknowledge that if you're here in Sansar, your socioeconomic status is at least as high as being able to afford a pretty killer PC. So that's kind of a selective audience, but other than that, this is not a
Yes, but even
fantasy.
then, we have no idea the sacrifices people have made to reach this socio-economic status.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know, and so that is freeing, and it's not a fantasy. This is awesome, Shyla, because this ties us totally into the theme for today, the fantasy theme. This is not a fantasy. Yeah,
Well, it
is it?
can be. I think it's what you want it to be. It can be fantasy. You can certainly do maybe not so much in Sansai yet, but you can certainly do role playing, which to me
Ah,
is
yeah,
a
good
form
point.
of fantasy. Or if you choose to, maybe you can't raise animals in the physical world, but you choose to have a farm here in
Hmm.
the virtual world where you have animals and things that you can raise. And I think that is a valid fantasy as well. And I
Yeah, yeah,
think
yeah,
it
yeah. You're right.
offers a sense of fulfillment of certain dreams that we may have, and it allows us to then focus in the physical world on what needs to be done in the physical world.
Right.
Because there's a certain point. I mean, I'm at a certain age now where I know some of my dreams and fantasies simply are not going to happen.
What are they, if
Eh,
you don't mind me asking?
Pardon me?
What are some of your dreams and fantasies?
Well, I said one earlier. Swimming with dolphins uh, would be is on my bucket list, as well as being in the ocean with whales. I find whales very amazing. I would like to follow the elephants in Africa. They have rangers that follow them and protect them, and I think that would be an amazing to follow a herd of elephants as they migrate.
Mm.
You truly are a
Uh,
super gecko, aren't you?
well, I have super gecko dreams, but these are not things that are actually going to happen, but I can make them kind of happen in a virtual world, eh?
Hmm. Yep. Yep. You're making a good point. I didn't mean to say that this is real in the sense like, because role play can be very real, and it should be because you're in it and you're inhabiting that. I guess we're coming back to the thing about, I guess what bugs me, and this goes back to my story with where my mom didn't understand that, to me this was important. Now I look at Conan, and again, I mean, now that I become a literary snob myself, I'm thinking, well, the writing is kind of poor, but it grabbed me when I was 12, 13, 14, and it opened up a world of imagination for me. And I think that's really the point too, that this imagining things, even if it's gargoyles or uh, worlds of dragons or whatever, I do believe that that it's like a muscle, it's like an exercise. It exercises the muscle of imagination, and I think, and who said this? Scorpion said this, that a lot of sci-fi, a lot of technical innovations by real scientists were triggered by them reading stuff in science fiction books. So
I'm gonna I'm
yeah.
gonna read, if it's okay, Drax, some of the chat.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Uh,
we have chat.
Seamus is here, and he wrote, "Hey, what all did I miss? I may be broken, but I'm still human, and VR gives me a chance to contribute in other ways. For some, it is a way to be an enhanced person, to allow us to be more than we can be in the physical world, or a way to become part of something else." And then you were talking about Conan, and El Diablo mentioned snake arrows.
Hmm.
And hi, Wild and Free, glad you're here.
El Diablo. Yeah, yeah. Some
Yeah, I think
important.
I think that's a really good point
I think
as
it's a
well.
limited point though, because you gotta remember is even though some people can they can move their legs in the virtual world, but they can't in real life and stuff like that. End of the day, the things you're doing in the virtual world don't have the senses that you'd have in real life. Like it's barely real because you can't smell, you can't touch, you don't get that fulfillment of the being a different person. Like
Okay.
We will.
Okay. Here's two things I have to
Promise
respond to
you
this.
that.
First of all,
wow,
I did a film with that stars Daisy and Shyla. It's called Our Digital Selves. You can watch it on YouTube, and it's playing in festivals. It's actually playing in Helsinki tomorrow, and then in Riverside in California on Friday. And that shows you, and it features Shyla and Daisy, among others, in their own words about how real this is and how transformative it is and how the emotional impact is real. I did a story about a woman who had passed away this year at age 93, and she started a Parkinson support group in Second Life. And she was subject of research about mirror neurons, um, and that's real, where she was riding horses in Second Life, and she was able to walk after she did that exercise in Second Life, looking at her avatar. And again, we're not even talking about a virtual world with headset immersion. We're talking about something mediated by the screen. So yeah, you cannot touch things, you cannot smell things, um, you cannot taste things, but the impact, the physical, the impact on your brain is such that there is a lot of evidence that this brings about an emotional well-being. You know, whatever the chemical processes are, it's dopamine that is being released in the case of this Parkinson patient. Um, I think we should have an open mind towards what the possibilities um, are. There was one research about, I forgot where I heard that. I think it was an NPR story years ago, where people were eating sweets in a virtual world and then their cravings went away in the real world.
I've
Because, yeah.
experienced when I am in VR. I forgot who I said it to. Um, when I would get close to somebody, I
Mm-hmm.
would anticipate smelling them.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a thing, I guess, with
Yeah.
me. I don't know if other people, but it's 3D. You know, you feel a sense of presence, and I would get close to somebody and be like subconsciously aware, like maybe are they going to smell my breath, or I don't want to breathe in their
Right.
face, or I might smell them, or these weird sensations that really feel real. It feels like it's going to happen, and affects your physiological response to being close to
Exactly.
somebody. And one other thing I wanted to add is this: I'm not attacking you, Pepsi. I just want to add that I was speaking with somebody about progress and how products evolve, and if we don't participate, these things won't happen. We won't get to a point where we'll be able to experience VR or an extra world the way we truly want to, in a way that would be, very realistic or whatever. People are like, oh, I'm going to wait until the next VR headset comes out. And if everybody did that, it would never come out because it needs to be supported. These platforms need to have people involved in order for them to grow. So I think there's always going to be a give and take where you're going to have people who fall into this very unhealthy pattern that affects them in a very bad way. But probably, the majority of users are going to be okay with kind of traveling to a fantasy world and being able to come back and handle their business in reality. Hopefully. I mean, we're still doing it. So
I'm just gonna come in with the chat. I posted the link to our digital selves in chat, and then Seamus said, "Where else can you be in a room with people from all over the world with different opinions and be allowed to communicate with all without being prejudged?" And then Lacey said, "I'm glad we can't smell some things sometimes." And then El Diablo says, "Smell-o-vision is in the next release, Lacey."
Oh boy.
Yeah.
But
And then Seamus says, I just want to get through this. In VR, I can use the parts of me that are still working to provide stimuli to my mind and body. This is real and physical to me. There are feelings that are good and bad, just another way to enhance life. And Daisy says, "Eek, I dread what a gator smells like."
Pepsi, I want to ask you, what made you come here? What made you download Sansar,
Good
log
question.
in, and then also search us out and then stick around? What were you
Well, to be
curious about?
honest, it was a video on Twitter where somebody gets angry and shouted at someone. So I was like, oh, that game looks fun. So I downloaded it, and
So you just wanted to shout at a bunch of people. Ah, I understand. You come to the
no,
right place? No, no,
I wanted to be shouted at. I wanted to experience that punishment. I wanted to get shouted at by someone, but like,
And look what happened. Look at it. It's like, be careful what
Got
you
you
wish
rich.
for on Twitter. Awesome. No, Pepsi, but that's great. So you wanted, but you did want interaction, right? You wanted to have a conversation and maybe, just maybe have a difference in opinion, have a debate, have a lively debate of sorts, I
yeah,
guess.
man, this is, I'm in a pimped out basement. I've got radio on. I've got, whoa, you're getting too close there.
You're from Scotland, right?
Yeah, let's go with that.
I was in Second Life in 2007, and there was a guy from Scotland, and I actually have this on video. It's on my YouTube channel, and we had a great conversation about politics and stuff like that. And then he, with this super broad Scottish accent, and please forgive me, he was like, Second Life can. It can save the world. Second Life, we all need to go into Second Life and save the world. Save the world. Because he meant like if we all debated, we would totally um, iron out all our differences, and that will be the way to peace was his point. And he had the he's same voice like you, not only the accent. Maybe it was you.
I agree with him. That's a smart man. I agree with him.
Huh?
Trax, I wonder something. I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of people that come in and they have fears. And through being in an interactive environment, I've seen them overcome their fears, like fears of heights, for instance, because I put mountains in my scenes and they're afraid of jumping, but they get over it. And I wonder how much, when we experience things in virtual reality beyond our normal capacity for being, how much that translates and carries into our regular life.
There's tons of studies. We explored a little bit in the movie. I encourage you to watch the movie and comment on it. There's tons of studies. I did an interview with Jeremy Belenson from Stanford. He runs the Virtual Human Interaction Lab. They do exactly those types of studies. They have very, very well-run studies with thousands of participants. They have one fear of height study where they have an experience where somebody is going on the edge of a building. They do PTSD studies over at Stanford Virtual Human Interaction Lab. Look around. This is a fascinating field of study. There's a lot going on, um, and too long don't read. In a nutshell,
Be
basically,
back in a minute.
yeah, basically we basically what it looks like that the visual information can impact so much more than we thought it would impact. I mean the brain or the brain response. Yeah.
I
Well, the
used to
neural
teach.
pathways,
I
right?
used to
Yeah.
teach rappelling, and I noticed when it was one of the biggest thrills when I would take groups of kids, and when they would go over the cliff, it would be so scary, but we would go with them, and they would overcome their fears, and it was one of the most freeing things
Hmm.
to see that. It was just an amazing experience to see someone free from a fear
Yeah.
and learn enjoyment from something they previously only worried and had anxiety about. It's just a neat
I mean,
thing. And
my
when
my
I guide
anecdotal.
people
Seamus
through
makes it
worlds,
really.
I generally keep that in mind. You know what I mean?
Shay-
Helping people.
Seamus makes a good point. He says, if you can learn something, how bad can VR be for life experiences? Life is only a collection of memories anyway, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And my anecdotal evidence from all the stuff in Second Life over a decade now is that people time and again, one thing that really sticks with me is that people have said that Second Life helped them overcome shyness and social anxiety. A lot of people that I interviewed over the years describe themselves as introvert, on starting from being introvert to some severe social anxiety, and they all said by opening up gradually in Second Life over time, that reverberated back into the physical world, so that now they can go out in social situations and have less anxiety. So this is just sort of anecdotal
I, I,
stuff.
I have to say, I have to
Yeah.
give a countering opinion
Yeah.
on this before we close, and that is I have a fear of horses. Now, I have not worked
Ah,
hard in Second Life to remove that fear of horses, but I
horses.
do
What?
render horses. That is the benefit in that world. I can render anything that bothers me,
Hmm.
and I can turn the sound off. The sound in Second Life of horses seems to really bring out that fear response, that flight response. And I suppose if I worked on it more, maybe I could get over it in Second Life. But
Yeah.
my brain finds the horses to be very real.
But you could get a horse maybe and just talk to the Second Life horse and
I would just run away from it.
They have free horses with the free avatars in Second Life.
well, but Shyla has
There was a horse event here recently, wasn't there? I noticed. I didn't go to it.
well,
but,
interestingly enough, what time is it? Is it already 10 a.m. Second Life time?
It is 10 a.m.
Because
already.
at 10 a.m. Second Life time, if you go to secondlife.com right now, you will see a wonderful video about horses. I don't know if you timed it like that, Shyla. That's so weird. But
I did not, but I heard you were working on this video. I can watch them in a video.
I know.
It's the
I asked you if
immersion.
you could participate in this video last week, and you said, no horses for me.
No horses.
Oh,
No, have a good video session, but I can't do the horses.
it's
And we were doing the Japanese video, and that gentleman showed up on a beautiful horse, and I rendered it, and then we decided not to have the horse. But yeah,
actually,
it's a strange phenomena for me, but it has not improved my fear of horses
yeah.
whatsoever.
Generally, fears can arise from a traumatic experience. Did you have a traumatic experience?
I did. I was at a protest that did not go well, and people began throwing things at the police who were trying to kind of gather the crowd so they could deassemble it. And I was on the front lines. I was one of the organizers.
Oh, they were trapping.
And so I was next to the police horses.
Oh,
And one
man.
bumped me, and they're very strong, and it threw me to the ground. It knocked me to the ground, but they never stepped on me or anything. They're very well trained. Like, logically, I've been through enough therapy that I can look at it and say that was a very well trained horse. He did not step on me. He didn't hurt me. He gave me space to get up. But all my brain thinks about is how muscular and big that horse was, and through a little bump, it was able to knock me to the ground.
I have a fear of horses.
Welcome,
I
Jack.
have a great interest in brain training, and you might find some, relief by going through to a clinical hypnotherapist and going through that scene. They take the emotion away and they help you
I'll talk
take
to them
the
about
trauma,
it.
get trauma relief.
Because I don't want to make Drax get rid of all the horses.
The way brains are wired, we make super
I don't have
highways
any
to
horses.
these traumatic things. So in order to change that, you have to change that super highway.
Yeah.
Yes, the neural
Make
pathways.
new memories, exactly.
Yeah. And that is something that's possible in a virtual world. Shall we wrap this up for
Yeah.
today, Drax?
Yeah. Thank you, Shyla. This is open mic every Tuesday at 9 o'clock. At 11 o'clock today, we have the music club. So we'll roll it into the music club. And the music club today is going to be a field trip to 3 or 4 different places. I talked with Solus, who is hosting the music club, and oh my God, I just got a ping. I have to go into Second Life to refilm a sequence with a horse. I'm not even kidding. Sorry.
That's so funny.
No,
That's so funny.
at 11 o'clock, come here for the music club, folks, and then we'll go on a little field trip, and we're filming also. So come looking your best. We're going to a bunch of clubs and also to Brass and Pipes, which is a gigantic pipe organ, and we're also going to the Violin Tree, which is a wonderful place. And that's at 11
Awesome.
o'clock.
Yeah, that's very
I can't wait.
interesting.
So thank you so much, Drax. Thanks everyone
Thank you,
for
Shyla.
coming. Scorpion, Joker, Daisy, Wild and Free. Glad to be a friend. Al, I see you back there. Garth.
I think I lost
and
my
El
fear of the
Diablo.
Joker. I think this was good therapy today. I lost my fear of the Joker.
Yeah,
The
I'm
Joker
going
is
to unmute him because someday I may want to hear what he has to say.
I'll unmute you, Joker. I'm sorry. I'll unmute you.
Okay, thanks everyone. I'm going to cut the stream.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye, everybody.
Next week, come back next week. Scorpion, loved your input.
Yeah,
Garth,
yeah,
Daisy,
great,
everyone, come back
Scorpion.
next
Everybody.
week. Wild and Free.
Garth
good
might
input.
tell a P story. We don't know that yet. It's not.
We don't. Oh, you're stereotyping him. I don't like that.
I love stereotyping. It makes things easy.
Typecast.
Typecast.
Yeah, typecast. You're right. Not stereotyped, but typecast.
Yeah.
Although I do have a few scripts for you to read.
Whoa! Look what
They have
Scorpion
to
is
do with
doing.
Outhouses and
What the hell?
being-
I'm sorry. I got. Okay, I'm gonna cut the stream
floating.
I had
too.
the